We're here to protect you and the ones that you love. It's a good feeling to know that our efforts aren't going unnoticed.
It actually brought tears to my eyes to know that we have this support.
You're welcome. I must just say, you're welcome. It's stressful, but we're not going anywhere.
Welcome to another edition of Bucknell Men's Soccer Through the Decades. Today we have the 1990s. We have some great guests joining Coach Brendan Nash and one of our current players, Matt Thorsheim. My name is Todd Newcomb. I want to thank Geisinger for sponsoring this event. Geisinger's been on the front lines throughout the pandemic, and they have done just a remarkable job for the whole area and this surrounding Lewisburg community and our student athletes as always. So we thank them for all that they do. I want to introduce our guests, and then I'll turn it over to Coach Nash and to Matt, and they'll ask a few questions. So our first guest is from the class of 1994, Mark Wrigley. Mark was the team captain in both 1992 and 1993. In the 1993 season, during which he had 139 saves, it still ranks third on the single-season saves list at Bucknell. He had 10 shutouts that year, which is tied for the school record for a single season. And he is the Bucknell career record holder with 431 saves, and he's third on the career chart with 19 shutouts. He was an All-Patriot League first-team selection in 1993, and also that season, he was a USC All-Region second-team selection. Our next guest from the class of 1996 is Tom Roller. Tom was the team captain in 1995. He was an All-Patriot League second-team selection in both 1993 and 1995. The 12 assists he had during the 1993 season remains the single-season school record. He ranks tied for fourth on the career assist chart with 20, and he won the Edward W. Pangburn Award at the Senior Awards Banquet. And our final guest from the class of 1998 is Brian Ruddy. Brian was the team captain in 1997, and he was an All-Patriot League second-team selection in 1996. They're going to be joined by one of our current players. That's Matt Thorsheim, a senior midfielder from the great state of New Jersey. And Coach Nash, we've got a good group. I'm going to turn it over to you.
Well, thanks, Todd. And I would also like to thank Geisinger for supporting our athletic department, especially during these tough times. And I know they are very overworked right now, and they're doing everything they can, and we appreciate what they are doing. Fortunately, I've had a chance. I only coached Brian, but I've been fortunate enough that I've met Tom before and I met Mark before. But this is part of this is the education, and like I said, to impart some wisdom on our student athletes. But I did not recruit any of you guys to Bucknell University. So if you guys could take us through your recruiting process, if there even was a recruiting process, because we learned from some of the guys that they just picked Bucknell because it was Bucknell. Matt got texts, he got emails, he had a much different recruiting process than in the early 90s. So if you guys could take us through it, and since Mark was so patient, let's start with Mark. And Mark, one thing I think you should do, you should petition the athletic department about your 10 shutouts, because the guy that tied you is Adam Edwards, and I think we might have played 21 games that year, and I think you got your 10 shutouts in 16 games. So you might want to petition the athletic department on that one. But Mark, can you tell us how you ended up at Bucknell? You visited other schools and Coach Reynolds and those different things.
Sure. Actually, my experience was pretty unceremonious. I grew up in Portland, Oregon. Probably not a typical recruiting area for Bucknell then. Perhaps it is now. I don't know, Brendan. You could perhaps talk to that. But I wouldn't say the recruiting effort on the West Coast was anything to speak of. I have, as it turns out, a long lineage of family members that have gone through Bucknell back to the time when it was Lewisburg College. I landed on Bucknell's campus when I was doing an East Coast tour. I met with Coach Reynolds during that visit, but I don't think he remembered me. I actually walked on as a freshman, and as a senior goalkeeper, was a starting goalkeeper, and I think there's one other person kind of in the goalkeeper ranks at that time. And I think it was fairly early on in the season when I started splitting the games with the senior. He may have had an injury. I'm going back in my memory banks, but I got an opportunity, and it was fortunate for me that I got that opportunity. But made the team and actually got quite a bit of playing time, at least half of the games throughout the first season. And kind of the rest is in the books. But really not a big recruiting effort, probably mostly due to my geography, if I had to imagine.
Did you look at many schools, or was it just once you were at Bucknell, you knew you wanted to be there?
I did. I looked at 6 other schools, mostly in the East Coast. I thought I would love to go to Dartmouth. Middlebury was my first choice. I got waitlisted at Middlebury. I wanted to play college soccer, and Division I was kind of my aspiration. But as it turned out, when I landed on Bucknell's campus, I realized that Christy Matheson Stadium is named after my grandfather's cousin, Christy Matheson. And all of the stuff that's in the Baseball Hall of Fame was donated by my grandfather. I didn't really realize his connection to Bucknell. Christy's father, Christy went to Bucknell, but his father was a professor at Lewisburg College. I think when I became aware of just all of that, it just really kind of came home for me. That was where I wanted to be. So.
Well, that's a good story, and I hope that someday we can find another walk-on that has a career like you did during your 4 years. Tom, can you tell us how you ended up at Bucknell?
Yeah, sure. It wasn't that dissimilar. I did have some other schools that I went and visited. I had visited James Madison at that time. They were kind of a powerhouse program in the country, beautiful campus. But they were pretty open and honest and said, you'd be looking at maybe junior, senior year before you'd be seeing a ton of time probably, because at that time they were a very strong program, in the country. And actually being from New York, I had actually visited Columbia. I was able to have an overnight there. But I didn't love the campus. I didn't love the city kind of atmosphere. And kind of like Mark, when I came on campus at Bucknell, I had a chance to meet Coach Reynolds, had a chance to spend, a couple of days there with my family and just kind of get a feel for it. And it was very different from Long Island where I grew up, and just something kind of triggered that was the right kind of idea for me, was to finally get away and be away far enough away that, I could enjoy that college experience. There was really no guarantee for me. Coach said, they wanted me to be a part of the program, but similar to Mark, you showed up day one. They obviously had more guys than they were going to keep on the field, and you were going to go, make sure you earn that spot. And so I remember the stress of those first couple of days. Luckily enough, performed very well. And within a couple of days was able to be named as part of that team. And, similar to Mark, I had ups and downs freshman year, but did get a chance to play quite a bit the second half of freshman year and enjoyed that time, and got to play 2 years with Mark. And he was absolutely tremendous as a teammate and just a phenomenal goalkeeper. So,
Tom, was Doc Martin the coach at James Madison when you went to go look at it?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, what a gentleman.
Mm-hmm.
Brian, tell us how you ended up at Bucknell.
Yeah, so my senior year in high school, my brother was playing at Gettysburg College, and so I had looked there a little bit. I knew that program and that coach pretty well. And then I started looking at some of the Patriot League and Ivy League schools. I had a relationship with the coach at Penn, but he lost his job my senior year, so that didn't work out as well. And then I started zeroing in on a lot of the Patriot League schools. A couple of them came to my high school state championship game, and so I started getting recruited at like Colgate and Lafayette. So I was looking at those types of schools. I knew I wanted to check out Bucknell. I had I guess older friends from high school who were at Bucknell, not playing soccer necessarily, but were there, and they were big fans. So I went out and spent the weekend there and had an exceptional time, I would say. And met with Coach, and Coach was very receptive to me coming, kind of like Tom said. But I found Bucknell as much as it found me, I would say. And it just felt like the right place to go once I got in, and I knew, and Coach said, yeah, we'd like you to come and give it a shot out here. So as soon as I knew I was going to get a fair shot, I thought I would be able to make the team, and fortunately I did. And like Mark said the rest is history.
Were you coming off a state championship your senior year?
Yeah, we won. We actually won. We had a very good team. I had an exceptional teammate who played at UVA in college. So we won everything. We won our conference and our county and the state championship that year.
So I'm sure some of the Jersey schools were trying to keep you in state, weren't they?
Yeah, that's true. There was some recruiting in New Jersey. I think I was pretty set on getting a little further away to go to college. So I didn't look at a ton of those schools, but I did look at Lehigh and Lafayette, which are right there. And then just maybe the reason that, academically it was important for me to go to a strong school, obviously. So I just ended up at looking at a lot of like Ivy and Patriot League schools, and that's what worked out best for me.
And Brian, we'll stay with you. And this is mostly for Matt because he's on the call, but we're going to have most of our guys try and watch these Zooms. And if you can give them just a little bit about how you matured during your 4 years at Bucknell as a player and as a person.
Yeah, I would say as a player, the biggest difference for me between my freshman year and say when I started really getting more done on the field was physically. I was pretty young for my class, and I matured pretty late. So I was still growing when I got to Bucknell. So I probably, Tom maybe remembers what I looked like when I got to campus, but I was probably like 5'9", like 145, like tiny, which probably hurt my recruiting as well, come to think of it. So, but by the time, I matured physically, I think that was a big step for me, being able to get things more done on the field and compete physically with, at a college, at a Division I level. So that's one way, would be physical maturity. And then, I just had a real passion for my teammates. My classmates are still, a bunch of my best friends in the world, probably my best friends in the world still to this day. So we just love to play together. So we just played a lot. Even when we weren't practicing with the team, we would play every day. And, all that regular work. I mean, that's how I was in high school, and that's how I was in college, just playing all the time. You have familiarity with your teammates, but you just get better too.
Yeah, Brian, just to talk about your teammates again, how many of your classmates from your freshman year, how many of them ended up in your wedding party?
I mean, all of them in some fashion, I mean, if I don't know how many were actually in, if the wedding party had 7 people, then they were all in it,
And your brother, right?
They certainly were involved if they weren't officially in the wedding party.
Tom, how'd you mature?
Yeah, I mean, from a soccer standpoint, I was always somebody who played up front all the way through, my younger years and through high school, and scored a lot of goals. And that was something I always thought would be what I did. And I did fairly well with that at the beginning at Bucknell. But then as time progressed, I can go back now and think that, I probably played 4 different positions in my time at Bucknell for substantial amounts of time. I had to play center back my senior year for a while. We were struggling back there. I played up front a while my freshman year, but the bulk of what I was able to do successfully and have success in distributing the ball was opportunities I had to play in the midfield sophomore and junior year. And I just think for me, it helped me understand better the game. It wasn't all really one-dimensional the way I used to be growing up. I was able to, kind of get to know, positionally what to do a little bit better on that field. And I had to grow, and I had some really good people in front of me who helped me do that. And then just as a person, Brian alluded to the relationships. We didn't travel as much as you guys do in terms of, plane trips and stuff across the country. It's jealous to hear some of the places you guys have gone the last few years. But I always say to my son now, when he was playing high school soccer, I said some of my fondest memories as a person was getting to go visit, the Naval Academy, getting to go to West Point, getting to spend those weekends with your teammates on 6-8 hour bus rides and spending those nights at hotels and so forth. And you really did build that bond with people. And I think, it just kind of helped you feel more confident after you graduated and you started to go off in your career path, that you could lead and you could, be real positive with other people. And that was something I'll always remember Bucknell for.
And Tom, I understand why you're jealous about our travel, but seriously, it would not happen without the support that we have from our alumni. And that's why Matt's in a very special position of, he had a chance to go to Denmark because the alums supported us so well. He didn't have to do fundraising for that. The program took care of it for him. So we're very fortunate, and that's just been paid forward, and it will continue. We will continue that tradition. So you guys were a big part of why you're jealous, actually. Sorry. It's your own fault. Mark, I don't know if goalies are supposed to mature during their time, but can you tell us how you matured as a goalie?
Yeah, goalies are known for hitting their heads a few too many times. So, no, I would say, similar to these other guys, physically, I showed up on Bucknell's campus as 6'2", 168-pound freshman. And when I came back for, fall training the following summer, the following August, I had hit the weights. I had never done weights before, and I think I was 185 at that point. I was, much more sizable. I don't think I've ever seen anywhere close to 168 or 185 since, but that's another story. So physically it grew, but I think just college and the experience of being on a team, in particular on a college campus, gives you a sense of community. And, you show up your freshman year, you already have 20 guys that are your friends, and some of them are upperclassmen. You get an experience that's just unlike any other. Paying it forward, I couldn't imagine doing this any differently than to pay it forward, right? As a senior this year, I think as you graduate and you think about your experiences at Bucknell and your classmates and teammates' experiences, you'll have the same opportunity to support the program and make sure that everything continues and improves. Brendan, I can't give it to you any more than I'm just going to say it. You've done a fantastic job with the program, and it's exciting to show up at some of these games. I've gone to the games at Monmouth and seen you guys. You guys show up and you really are sharp. You guys have a fantastic program, so I'm proud to support it.
Appreciate that. Very classy. Matt, why don't you try and get some wisdom from these gentlemen?
Sure. I guess I'll start with Mark. You kind of touched on it a little bit, but what advice would you give me and my teammates about the college soccer experience at Bucknell?
I'm sorry, Matt, was that it aimed to me, Mark Wrigley, or is that to the other guys?
Yeah.
Just generally across this? Yeah, I mean, you have one more year. It's going to be an albeit very different year. But you have 3 years of wisdom behind you, the ability for you and your senior team members to impart some of that wisdom and instill some of the traditions for the program. And, I think those are all things that you guys probably do. But, I mean, I recall being a senior, being a captain on the team, and Tom, you probably recall this as well. The younger guys, they look up and they want to learn from the older guys who have been there and have seen some things. So I think this is an opportunity for leadership and driving positive change. And I would encourage you to do your best to make sure that the program continues after you and your senior classmates to be even better.
For sure. I guess the same question to you, Brian.
Yeah, I would agree with a lot of that. I kind of alluded to before, like how close I was with my teammates. I would say, one, I would enjoy that time together, those road trips and everything, and all the experiences of playing together and competing together. That's definitely an experience I've drawn from my whole life in business and in just life in general. Being able to, like Mark said, lead your friends is like an exceptional skill that I think translates really well for the rest of your life, especially in business. To make someone feel that maybe they are working for you, but to make them feel like they're your teammate as well, and motivate them to do better is something that translates really well to the rest of my life. So I would enjoy it, and then just try to soak up all those experiences of trying to lead your friends, because that's like a huge skill that I think I got from being at Bucknell. And one of the reasons I love Bucknell and loved playing soccer there is because I think I got as much out of it, as hopefully it got something from me too. But, I got a lot out of it. So enjoy that, and don't forget those experiences.
Same to you, Tom?
Sure. And I would just add, for me, athletics, one of the things it provides people besides the leadership opportunities is a chance to kind of build resiliency. Brian alluded to, I know my senior year, we didn't have the wins and losses the way I wish we would have had for the last year I was there. I was lucky enough to have more success sophomore year. But, one thing I always took a lot of pride in was how hard we played and how much we wanted to play. And Brian alluded to the fact that, he and his classmates, they were always playing no matter what. And they were spending time together, and they were kind of building teamwork. And, I work in education today, and I think one of the things that our young people struggle with a lot is resiliency. Everybody wants instant gratification. Everybody wants to be a champion or a hero or the best this and the best that. And when things don't go well, oftentimes they don't have the skills to deal with that. And I think some of what I went through, soccer-wise at Bucknell, the opportunity to work through some of those struggles, having to earn a position on that team and then work your way up to the point where you got to be a leader, that taught me a lot about myself as a person. And no matter what job or field you go into in the future, you're not going to have, every day is not going to be peachy keen, regardless of whether you're a coach or whether you're in business, you're a teacher, educator, or whatnot. And what you do with that, I think, is really important. And I think, I agree with Brian, spend lots of time walking around the campus this year and just soaking it up and taking in how beautiful it is. Because whenever we get a chance to come by and visit, we still marvel at how gorgeous it is, even though it's grown a lot since we've been there. But it's still one of the more beautiful places you could go.
Yeah, I think we're going to need some of that resiliency this year too, just
Yes.
how everything's shaping up. But I think a lot of the guys are actually looking at it from the perspective of, we better have we hopefully will have a spring season, and it's going to be really good to be able to introduce our freshmen this entire fall semester. So we're kind of looking at it as trying to turn it into a bit of a positive, and being able to integrate these guys rather than just throwing them into a system they've never worked with, and being able to really come together as a team before the season starts while adding these new players. So.
Yeah, it's actually different because we've been talking about it as a staff about the different coaching challenges. But for the freshmen, think about how when you guys were thrown into it in August, and all of a sudden you have to be ready in 7 days to go play a Division I soccer game.
Yeah.
So hopefully these freshmen are fortunate enough that they have 3 months to figure out what Bucknell soccer is all about and what Division I soccer is also about. But who knows? Let's move on to more of a positive note at that point and talk about what your most memorable experience was through soccer. And it doesn't have to be a soccer game. It could be a game. It could be a practice. It could be something that you guys did off the field. What was your most memorable soccer experience during your 4 years? And Tom, let's start with you.
It'll sound, obviously the Patriot League Championship tournament sophomore year was outstanding. And unfortunately we lost in overtime in that championship game to Army. But another game that stands out that we actually lost was sophomore year when we played Penn State at Bucknell, and they were ranked in the top 15 in the country. Freshman year, we had gone out to Penn State and absolutely got it handed to us 6-0 in Penn State when they were ranked in the top 10 in the country. And as a freshman, it was quite humbling to be on that campus and to see that program and so forth. So when it was time for them to come visit us sophomore year, we started off really, really good sophomore year, and we were playing well. But all of us kind of remembered what had happened. And I remember saying to one of the teammates, I said, there was a lot of rain in the forecast, similar to what happened here yesterday or 2 days ago. And I said, maybe a monsoon would help us. And sure enough, I had never walked out of the field house to more rain in all my life. And so we stepped on the field to warm up, and there was standing water. And, they allowed us to start it. And halfway through the game, it was 1-1, and then they scored. And then we were lucky enough to tie it up halfway through the second half with a great goal by Greg Beatty. And then, Riggs, I don't know if you remember this or not, but I do, because I was in the wall when Penn State earned a free kick from probably about 22, 24 yards out. And in baseball, they say, when it's a home run by the sound of the ball hitting the bat. I kind of knew the kid had hit it good when it was whistling by my ear. And I remember turning around thinking, this isn't going to be good. And you were sprawled out, and you were a big dude back then, and you leaned all the way out there, and that thing went in the upper corner just outside of your, finger, reach or whatever. And we lost 3-2, but I think it was one of those kind of defining turning point moments for us that we were ready to compete with them. And that just kind of sprung us forward for the rest of the season. And we had a great year that year.
Mark, do you want to follow up on that? I don't know if you remember the goal or not, but let's keep it more positive.
No, you know what? Look, I do remember the game well, and you're right, Tom. Playing Penn State and playing Maryland and some of these programs that just had programs that were exceptional at that time, probably still are, nationally ranked pretty consistently. That was playing up for us. And I won't say it this way. I wouldn't say that we were playing for a tie, but when you got to within a 3-2 nail-biting match against Penn State, that was exciting. And that was something where you just felt like you were playing above your pay grade. And it was a lot of fun. And, you walk away from something like that. The guys got on the Penn State bus going home probably scratching their head like, how did that happen? But you're right. Sometimes those mud bog games, they're great equalizers because the ball doesn't roll, it just splashes. Those are opportunities to maybe seize on those moments. And I think that was a very memorable game. We had a similar one, Tom, I can't remember which year it was, but it was up at Army, another drenching game.
That was
I just remember sliding around.
That 1-0, so thank goodness.
Yeah. We won that one. So no, I think I don't know what it is about rainy days, but those experiences sometimes are memorable, especially as a goalie sitting back there with all the equipment getting wet. Yeah.
Brian?
There's a couple that stand out, but I would say the two that stand out the best is like junior year. The team was sort of building steam and getting better throughout the season. And I remember a win up at Holy Cross, which I think was 3-2, but just a back and forth great game where we just came through like real late in the game. Scott Gilroy had a great goal to put us in front. He was a freshman. And it's just like it built that energy in the team. The team really felt like we were really making strides forward. So I remember that one. And I remember a tough loss that same year at Lafayette, but the same thing. I felt like we were getting so much better. It just geared me up so much. Those two games geared me up so much going into my senior year. I was so excited and ready for senior year. And then senior year had some disappointments. I had an injury, and it was a lot of there was a couple injuries, and we're kind of on and off the field. But the culmination was the last game at Navy, the last game of my career, as it turned out, was and they were a pretty good team. They were on their way to the tournament, and we went up there and kind of ruined their entrance in. I don't know if they got in or not, but we beat them pretty good, and we dominated the play and kind of showed the team that we could have been if kind of everything fell in a line senior year. So I think we beat them 2-0 or 2-1. I know we had 2 goals. So, but those road wins in the Patriot League are things that stick out to me that I always loved going on the road and winning Patriot League games. It's a great bus ride home when you win on the road in the Patriot League.
Yeah, and I was a young assistant for both of those, and those were some pretty. I don't have to be the guy that's sitting in the front, Matt. I could actually sing and dance with the guys when I was the young assistant coach. So that was memorable. But Brian, I don't know if you remember, because you might have been right behind Scott Gilroy when that play happened, but there was probably 20 seconds left in the game when he got the ball. And Matt, he might have taken 10 touches inside the 18 as the clock was winding down before he shot the ball. And everybody was like, what is going on? Like, this is such slow motion. What are you doing? And then he just calmly slotted it in. And we're like, okay, let's get out of here. Let's get on the bus. Let's enjoy this 6-hour bus ride home. Yeah, that was my first year as an assistant.
I don't remember all those touches, but I definitely remember where the ball finished in the net. It was tucked. I thought it was in the upper 90, but I mean, memories change over the years, maybe.
Well, that was my first year as an assistant, and it was my first road Patriot League game. So I thought, oh, this is easy. We just go in the game and we win these games. No problem at all. And then, as you know, Matt, it's not that easy to win in the Patriot League, never mind win on the road in the Patriot League. But Matt, actually, last year, he was a part of a 3-2 overtime win at Holy Cross as well. So we've had some memorable wins up in Worcester, and hopefully we have many more. Guys, for the audience that's out there, we'll call it the elevator pitch, but why don't you tell everybody where you are, what you're doing, family, career, and just what's going on. And Mark, why don't we go with you on this one?
Okay, yeah, I'm probably the older guy on the call here. So
respect.
Family, I've got
respect.
What's that?
We're giving you respect.
Thank you. Yeah. So I graduated from Bucknell, and I've found a job in the New York area working for Citibank, and I've stayed kind of with the banking thing for my entire career. Now with BNY Mellon, I'm in my 21st year at BNY Mellon. I'm I guess what we call client executive. It's really a corporate banker, and enjoy what I do. I've got 3 kids. I'm divorced, but live in the town next door and see them all the time. My oldest is going off to college this year. Thankfully, he's actually going to be able to start on campus. Bucknell, I tried to convince him. It was on his short list, but he got an early decision to Wake Forest, so he's excited about that. And yeah, I stayed with soccer probably for the first few years out of college. Would play at Chelsea Piers in the city and do some of the indoor stuff. But as a goalkeeper, that kind of pounding kind of took its toll on me. So I play a lot of golf. I do a little running and cycling, but apart from that, I'm more into the non-impact stuff. Still love the game, still love watching it, and certainly I'm very happy to be a proud supporter of Bucknell's program.
Mark, did you pass on the
touched
goalkeeper?
on all the points, but I think any questions you guys can ask, but I'll turn it over to maybe Tom.
Well, Mark, I have a question. Did you pass along the goalkeeping gene to any of your children?
I tried. The middle guy is probably the best position to do it, but he really just doesn't have the passion for soccer. He's a big guy. He's just looking at the size of his feet and his hands. He's definitely going to be bigger than me, and I could see him as a water polo goalie or something like that. He's more of an aquatics guy.
Tom, what are you up to these days?
Yeah, so after I graduated Bucknell, I like many others, I actually met my wife at Bucknell, and she was from the Radnor, Villanova area. So we relocated down, just north of Philadelphia. I had the opportunity to teach middle school for a couple of years. I was lucky enough to coach Division III soccer for 3 years, back when Arcadia University was still called Beaver College, Division III school down here in the Philly area. Had an opportunity to coach college kids when I was 24 and some of them was 21. So that was quite an interesting experience as a head coach when your players were about 3 or 4 years younger than you. I enjoyed every bit of that. And then went on to become a principal, get certified in that. And now I've been doing that for the better part of about 16 years now at a very small public school north of Philly. I have 2 kids. My oldest just finished his freshman year at East Stroudsburg University. I was lucky enough to coach him all the way through, his travel soccer years. Got to watch him play in high school. He's not continuing right now in college, but he's going into exercise science, so he's kind of keeping the whole sports thing going that way. And then my daughter is going to be a junior in high school here. So we started a family young, which I feel really lucky that we did, because I was able to be a part of those soccer years with Pat and actually participate in the practices versus just coach him and, kind of still be able to demonstrate some of those things, which was very gratifying for me. One of the things I miss the most now that, he's kind of moved on past his high school years. But again, same thing. When we get to come visit Bucknell, I haven't been able to see too many games. Unfortunately, school principals and weekend events at school make it hard to get up there. But I did have intention of coming up in April this year before that whole thing got messed up and so forth. But I hope to be up there in the future. And I congratulate you, Brennan. You guys have done a phenomenal job.
And I can tell you this, the golf course wants us to have our alumni event. And they keep saying, can we do it in the fall? Can you move it to the fall? Because they enjoy having a full flight out there, and we always have that full flight. So we'll keep you posted on that, but just keep your fingers crossed, because who knows?
Yeah.
Brian, what are you doing these days?
Actually, out of Bucknell, I took a consulting job in New York City, and I did that for a bunch of years. But I ended up in the profession I'm in now through a friend at Bucknell who's like, he knew I was a math major at Bucknell and a pretty competitive person, and he said, you should check out what his brother does, and that's options trading. And I never really had a lot of experience with what that was going into that interview, but I ended up taking this job in 2002, and I'm still in that profession 18 years later. I trade options. I now have my own book for a small shop that I trade with partner, and it's kind of like a eat what you kill type setup, but it's a great profession for someone who's competitive, who's a former athlete, because it's very competitive, and it's like a sport with your head. It's a really fast moving world to be a trader. So I really enjoy it a lot. And then personally, I live back in New Jersey, which is where I grew up. I have a great wife and 4 kids, and their ages are between 4 and 13. And I spend a lot of my weekends. The only reason I don't make those golf tournaments is I coach a lot of sports, and I'm always on the field watching them play, and I love that. I still get to play. I played a bunch of soccer and basketball from college through 17 years, but that same knee I hurt my senior year kind of gave way, and so now I like Mark, I play a lot of golf, and like I said, coach the kids. So it's a good time, but I say I got a lot of my doors open still through Bucknell, and that's another reason why I love the school and the program so much.
Well, Brian and Mark, you're both Jersey guys, and you both mentioned golf, and I have a little bit more free time this semester. So whenever you want to have an alumni chat, you can invite me to your home course, and we can have some fun out there. But Brian, one of the things I remember when I first got to Bucknell was your father was a very big supporter. He was at every game. And does he get a soccer fix anymore?
Yeah, I mean, he went up. He saw you guys play last year, right? Because my dad's remarried now, and his two of his sons, he has twins now in his second marriage, and they're going on their way to college. So they were visiting Bucknell, and he got to see you guys play last year. So he still catches a lot, and they played lacrosse and various sport and basketball in high school. So he still gets his fix, and I think he gets his soccer fix still from Bucknell. If they're in the area, he likes to go catch them play.
I'll give my best. I remember how passionate he was for soccer.
Great.
Matt, why don't you take it away?
Sure. I guess I'll start with Tom this time. What advice do you have about networking, the Bucknell network, and finding the right job after Bucknell?
Yeah, I continue to be amazed at how many people are aware of the academic, reputation of Bucknell. Everywhere I go, I tend to run into people, and they're like, "Oh, you went to Bucknell, and how did you find that school? And what was that like? And we heard that's like just like the Ivy Leagues." And so there's this whole reputation thing that you start off with there, And I say that because I don't think I was nearly as smart as most of my teammates were. So I think soccer may have had a little bit more to getting into the school than the academic side on my end. And I say that out of respect for my teammates. We had some really smart guys on the team. Greg Beatty, probably the smartest of them all. But I think Brian alluded to the friendships and those colleagues that you have, that all of a sudden you start to realize that there's people all over the country that went to Bucknell and love Bucknell. And I would say, when you start to do things like this, where you're engaged with us and connected with us, trying to find alumni, I don't think you should ever feel bad about reaching out whenever you decide, what it is that you really want to do, right when you get out of college. If it was something that any one of us could help give you a head start on, I know we would do that. I've actually had a couple of student teachers in my school who went to Bucknell, and that's the coolest thing in the world, to be able to see that, when, they've actually had on their resume, and then they move to the area and it's like, oh, wait, we need an opportunity as a substitute teacher or something like that. So I think whenever you get an opportunity to reach out to alumni, it's a special place and people want to help Bucknell graduates.
Brian, you mentioned finding your current job through a Bucknell guy. So if you want to expand a little bit.
Yeah, and I would just expand by saying I've had multiple Bucknell soccer players on my trading desk sitting next to me for days or weeks, summers even. So, I mean, whenever someone from Bucknell, and it doesn't have to be a soccer player, but those are my favorite. But it doesn't, anyone from Bucknell reaches out to me and they show an interest in what I do, I'm always excited to have them on the desk and show them what I do, so they could just start thinking about more what they want to do, finding what's best for them. But on top of that, you never know when it's going to work out and it's going to be a good fit. And you could end up finding, the perfect fit for your business as well, or your school in Tom's case. And so I always just want to say, Bucknell students, the reason there's so many successful Bucknellians is they're all smart, or a lot of, they're very smart, and they're just as smart as most of the other schools, including the Ivies, I would say. But the thing is, I always find that they can communicate, and Bucknellians are the perfect combination, in my experience, of thinkers and innovative thinkers with good communicators. And that's the key to business, at least in my business and a lot of businesses. So, like Tom said, I encourage you to use your alumni network, use Coach Nash. Figure out who is an alumni that does what you maybe want to do, and reach out, because I bet you get a lot of positive receptions from those people. So do it. Use the network.
Mark?
Yeah, no, I'd agree with everything that Brian and Tom have said. The network, when certainly Tom and I graduated, was who's coming, which companies were coming to campus to have, attend the career fair day or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And you try to sign up and try to get an initial 10-minute interview to see if they'd actually bring you in. Networking is different today. It's social media, it's LinkedIn, it's some of the other job social media sites and apps. It's still the career office, from what I understand. And I've actually been working with my company to make sure that Bucknell is on the recruiting roadmap, in terms of, if we're making visits to campuses to get our own name out there, that Bucknell's on that map. And, that's something that when you graduate and you have your first job, which is the hardest job to get, you'll have an opportunity with whoever you end up working with to get Bucknell's name out there and make sure that you're able to find candidates for your own company. So, I think it's, for young graduates, it's better to try to figure out how that network will work for you. But as you get older, I find, you want to get good candidates in. And, if it's for summer internships or for full-time positions, Bucknell is a good breeding ground for talented people.
For sure.
Mark and Brian, I'd like to follow up with you both on that one, because Matt's interested in finance and you guys are in the finance world. And Mark, you just mentioned social media. So yeah, things are different nowadays. And are there any red flags that you guys pick up on right away to say, Matt, do not do this, or it's going to set you back so far?
Probably not beyond what he's already either heard about or hopefully not experienced for himself. But like, I think young people and social media is so many different things that, not all things on Instagram or Facebook, if anybody does Facebook anymore in your graduating class, there are certain things that just be smart about what you're posting. And I find that people that are posting positive things rarely get into trouble. So, it's the sarcastic, snarky stuff that comes across the wrong way. The critical stuff, if you want to stay out of trouble, I would stay away from the situations where you might be criticizing something.
Right. Matt doesn't have to worry about that. I know that one. Brian, anything to add on that, or you just agree?
Not really. Same thing. I really don't have a lot of memories about people from work or people that I'm doing mistakes. I just know as a parent, my biggest fear is for my kid to mess up his whole life posting the wrong thing. So I think about it all the time when they get their phone and they get their iPad and they get some account. It's just my biggest fear as a parent that they mess up their life or stumble their life by posting the wrong thing. Yeah, I would agree.
Guys, we're not going to have enough time to get through all of our questions, so I'm going to take a couple of them out. And one of the things, we had talked before the call started, but I've been at Bucknell a pretty long time, and I don't have it all figured out. And I want to continue to be a better leader for the alumni, a better coach for our student athletes, and a better ambassador for Bucknell University. So is there any advice you guys can impart on me as we finish up to say, hey, here's something you may want to think about, or here's something you may want to tweak within the program? And I'm not going to pick somebody on this one. So if you want to start, you can start. If you don't want to answer, you don't have to answer. But I'm looking for advice.
I'll throw this out there just as from the educational side, obviously. And I mentioned the resiliency thing, but I think, in most businesses and in most work locations, we look at what people can do emotionally to succeed, and that whole concept of emotional intelligence. And I think, as a coach, you're thrown all of these guys from all across our country, and now you have guys coming from other countries and trying to figure out a way to bring them together as a group. And I'm sure you focus as much on the character of the people as the X's and O's that you do soccer-wise. And I think when people leave the, college campus community, those are some of those things that they will remember. And, Brian, you talked about people being really good communicators. And I think that is critical in this day and age, more so than ever. And I think, Coach, you probably talk about, the guys needing to spend time together, getting away from the cell phones, getting away from the social media. And that's another piece of advice I'd give the players. Enjoy those moments together with your teammates. We didn't have all of that distraction. We barely had the internet distracting us all that much back then. We didn't have to worry about all the cell phones and iPhones, and we got to spend a lot of time together. And I think finding those times, Coach, whenever you can do it, the fun ways outside of the season to have, fun events for the team, goofy things to do, but just to get them to spend time together away from the social media and away from all that other garbage that you read there, and really enjoy each other's company would make their experience even better.
Brian and Mark, anything to add?
That's well said. I think I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, that's an educator right there, Tom. I can see why you're successful at what you do. Matt, you want to ask your last question?
I guess for Brian and Mark, since I am interested in finance, I don't know if either of you have done any further schooling, or if you considered grad school after college, but if you could talk on that, because I'm in the middle of figuring all that out.
Sure.
Brian,
you want to go first?
Sure. I didn't do any postgraduate education. I just kind of learned on the job, and I never found that it would be a big help to my career if I was staying in what I do now. I just didn't think, an MBA or something like that really would have added a lot. So I never ended up doing it. I think you have to find your own path. I mean, there's so many different areas of finance. And certainly if you're going to be an analyst or something like that, maybe an MBA would make sense, or if you're going to, start a company or things like that. But I think everybody's unique, and you have to figure out as best you can. And sometimes it's not that easy. Sometimes it takes years. It took me 5 years to find something I really, really liked. But as you figure that out, then you just figure out if that postgraduate degree is something that's going to really, elevate you. And I have other teammates, Sammy Graziano, who's 01, has had a really successful career, and he found that he wanted to go back to school to get an MBA so that he could take those next steps now he's a CEO of a really successful company. So I think you just figure out what your path is, and that'll lead you to the decision of whether, more school is going to help you or not.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I agree. Depending upon what area of finance, it's a pretty broad spectrum of things that you can do with that. From my own experience, I got to a point in my career, I was more on the investment banking, corporate banking channel. Whereas, I think, Brian, you're more in the sales and trading channel. So for my channel, I really needed to get that additional degree. I went back and got my MBA from NYU, and I went at night, so I didn't have to kind of interrupt my where I was at work. It was challenging. It was worthwhile at the end of the day for my career progression. I find folks that are more interested in the investment management space to be interested in getting a CFA, which is, that's also a very challenging way to further your education. It's much more of a self-study type of program. You really have to be very regimented. So depending upon which areas you're focused on, in any event, I don't think an MBA probably right out of school has a lot of value. My own personal experience is you want to have some work experience and bring some of that as context to your MBA program. You and your classmates will benefit more from it after you have a couple of years under your belt. In my case, it was 6 years under my belt before I went back.
Gotcha.
And Matt, Sam Graziano, who Brian referred to, he is a CEO of a company, and he's hired soccer players. But even not hiring soccer players, he's always willing to take you to lunch, take you to dinner, and just meet with you and give you advice. So going back to the network, Sam is actually another excellent option because he's always open to helping Bucknellians. Guys, I have the last question before we take more of your time, but I'm going to put Brian on the spot first because Brian has talked so much about how close he was with all of his teammates. So who is the teammate you admired the most, Brian?
I would say Brennan Whitworth. Brennan Whitworth was my year, and he was commissioned into the Marines on our graduation day as an officer. He served in the Marines for a handful of years, and then he joined the State Department. He ended up going over to Iraq. He was he learned before he went to Iraq. He went to Tunisia, became fluent in Arabic. Went over to Iraq in the Green Zone, helping our country, and then went on to Harvard Business School, and now he's a professional leading the sales and marketing team for a major multinational corporation. So all that together, but I would just say more Brendan's just his pride in the way he goes about his life and the way his commitment to whatever he's doing is exceptional. And you actually asked me off this call, Brendan, if they were all at my wedding party. He was the only one who missed my wedding because he was over serving our country. So I have a lot of admiration for Brendan and all that he's done.
Yeah, maybe I should have saved you for last, Brian, because that's going to be tough for Mark and Tom to top.
Yeah, he's done.
Tom, you want to try and tell us about the teammate you admired the most?
Yeah, I think for me, and he was one of the best players we had in the 4 years I was there, was Greg Beatty. He was a phenomenal goal scorer. He was not the most intimidating physical presence. We didn't have a ton of those guys, to be honest with you. But he just competed and competed and competed. He was always the first one there. He was committed to nutrition. His body was always in great shape physically. And then I think I alluded to it earlier, probably the smartest guy I met in my time at Bucknell too. I think he's a doctor now over in UPenn or whatever, doing all kinds of research. And I just thought that combination and commitment to one of the more rigorous academic programs you would see at Bucknell, and, you know, engineering and then pre-med stuff. And he was always taking extra courses and research and so forth. And then to have that success on the soccer field, you know, he was somebody I really looked up to. And we enjoyed our time together. We really did. And the more we spent time together, the better I think we were together on the field. So,
Mark, wrap us up.
Yeah, you know what? I'm with Tom on this one. Greg was I think it was a year behind my class, and so I spent a lot of time with him. He was one of those quiet leaders, very cerebral, just a stand-up guy in all regards. And you knew when he said something, you know, insightful was going to come out. So he's one that you always took notice of and you always listened to, because frankly, I think he was one of those team members that everybody looked up to. Number one, he was tall. So he had kind of he had a slight frame, but he was a commanding presence. He was fast. I mean, like, he was just an exceptional soccer player, but just a really good person. I always really liked him for, you know, just the things that the thoughtfulness that he put into what he would say. And it's not a coincidence. He's a smart guy, and not a coincidence that his career has blossomed the way it has. So.
Well, guys, we don't want to take up any more of your time, but I really do appreciate it. I hope all you guys are safe, and I'm going to bring it back to Todd. But I would just like to thank the three of you. Good luck with everything. I'd like to thank Geisinger once again, and go Bison from me.
thanks, Coach.
Thanks, Coach. And just in closing, a couple of comments. First of all, Matt, to you, thank you so much for joining the call today, and best of luck both this fall and in the spring. We'll keep our fingers crossed that you're actually playing games in the spring. That's what we all hope for. We want to get you guys back out on the field. There's no better way for you to obviously end your career than have a great season as a senior. And I know one of the reasons Coach Nash had you on this call was to take the messaging that you just heard tonight back to your teammates. I've been at Bucknell now. This is my 22nd year, and there's a program that does it better as a family than men's soccer. And a lot of that can be attributed to Coach Nash and what he does to keep the family together. But it's also you guys as alums, you know, Brian, Mark, and Tom. Thank you so much for all that you've done for the program, not only as a player when you were here representing us on the field, but what you've done since then as ambassadors for both Bucknell and the program. The Bucknell men's soccer family really takes care of each other. And that's a message, Matt, that I hope you can get back to your teammates so that when it's their turn, they can pay that forward. So again, thank you for the three alums for joining us, and for everybody that joined and watched at home tonight. Thank you, and go Bison.